y'all. Welcome back to another episode of In the Kitchen with Baker Girl. Thank you, Jesus. It is a beautiful, sunny, super cold day to be in the kitchen. Now, today's recipe is a delicious banana bread. Now, I've got these super ripe bananas that have been hanging out on the counter, and I've been looking at them and I'm thinking, I'm going to get to you. So today's the day I'm going to get to them. Now, this is the perfect time to use them, right when you go, time to toss. No, time to use, because these bananas have the best flavor. Now, you know, your usual yellow banana, they're good for eating, but they're not the best for baking because they don't have the most flavor. So these are the most flavorful banana. And I'm going to put them together and make a delicious banana bread. Now, before we jump into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow along, because on my channel, I share different recipes with you. Healthy cooking, healthy baking, made from scratch, all the things the good Lord brings to my mind. I love to share them with you guys. Now, let's jump right into the recipe. Now, I've got ingredients all over the board, literally all over the board today. But I'm just going to give you a rundown of them. Now, I'm using whole wheat flour in my banana bread today. You can use regular. I'm using some whole wheat, by the way. I have some regular and I have some whole wheat. And you can use all regular all-purpose flour, unbleached. Or you can use what I'm doing today, which is a combination of the two flours. That's all entirely up to you. I wouldn't go all whole wheat. Now you can, but if you do choose to go all whole wheat, I would try out whole wheat pastry flour. That's a little bit lighter and it won't make your banana bread so heavy and dense. Banana bread is a little bit dense anyway. At least my banana breads are, because I put way more stuff in them than a usual banana bread. And I'll explain that, but that's why I'm all over the board today, because I use way more stuff. So I'm going to start by making the streusel. Now, I do put a streusel in this banana bread. You don't have to, and I don't always do it, but today I had a couple extra ingredients in the pantry. So I decided to make the streusel. So let's begin by making the streusel. Now, the whole thing is going to be made in one bowl. And that's how I like to make my banana breads. And if you get used to a method of mixing, you can mix in one bowl. And it saves, okay, I've got a ton of little teeny bowls, but that's because I have everything pre-measured. But if you use the scale, you can put your bowl right on the scale and then measure and mix. And you don't have to have any dirty little bowls, which is always a bonus when you are baking. So in this bowl, I have oats, I have whole wheat flour, I've got sugar, cinnamon, and I have salt. And I'm going to add all of that right into my mixing bowl here. And I'm going to put on gloves because I'm going to cut some butter into here. Now, most of my banana bread recipes, as a matter of fact, 95% of them, and I do different types, 95% of them are dairy-free. And I am known for dairy-free banana bread. You don't have to use regular butter. You can use dairy-free butter. You can also use oil. That just depends on what you like. So just mix that up. Get the spices and everything all nicely mixed. And then here I've got a couple of tablespoons of butter that was hanging about in the kitchen. And that's why I'm making a streusel, because I had a couple tablespoons of butter hanging about in the kitchen, and I decided, yeah, throw you in there too. So we're not wasting anything. The funny thing about banana breads is that we make banana bread because we're trying to use up all these extra bananas that we have. But then we end up adding all these other ingredients. And then at the end of the day, you're like, okay, I use flour, sugar, butter, or oil, spices, this and this and this, just to save a couple of overripe bananas. So that's kind of funny. Okay. So, that smells really, really good. And I don't always add oats in my streusel. You can leave them out if you want to. In this case, I am, but I don't always add it. But it's totally, I mean, it's good. Even more healthy for you. Now, here I've got black walnuts, and I am going to add them in my streusel. There's a couple of reasons why. Whenever I'm baking something like bread or something that has nuts in it, I like to put some nuts on top of it. So there's never no doubt for anybody who's eating, whether it's labeled or somebody, you know, set it out on a table to serve, you know there's nuts in it because you can see the nuts right on top. So, because, I mean, everybody can't have nuts. So I like to make sure I announce their presence, that they are in the bread. Okay, those black walnuts smell so good. Thank you, Jesus. The smell and flavor is unmatched. You can use regular walnuts, by the way. You can also use pecans. That's perfectly fine. You can use slivered almonds. You can use pistachios. That'd be good. That'd be real good. Okay, so I've got my streusel mixture ready. And yes, I wear gloves because if you already know, I don't like getting my hands into icky things. So, and to my fingers, this is ickiness. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just pour this mixture right on back into the bowl where I had the walnuts. So this is the streusel mixture all ready to go, and I'm going to set it aside, and now we can start building the actual banana bread. Okay, now let's go ahead and start by putting in the dry ingredients. So the first thing that I am going to add into the bowl is I'm using canola oil. You can use avocado oil, grapeseed oil. You can use sunflower oil, whichever one you like. I'm just using canola oil today. And I'm going to go ahead and add in my sugars. Now I have regular granulated sugar, white granulated sugar. And I also have some light brown sugar. You can use dark brown sugar. As a matter of fact, I prefer dark brown sugar, but haven't got any today. And I'm going to always smell things because, like I say, I've got so many extracts and things in the pantry that you can be in a hurry and grab peppermint extract, and then, you know, that wouldn't work out too good. So always give it a smell. I'm going to use 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So, and there we are. That's 2 teaspoons. And whisk this together. And starting gently because I'm going brave today, y'all. I am not wearing an apron. Which actually rarely happens in the kitchen. Normally I have an apron on. But it is so cold today that I'm wearing one of my super bulky, thick sweaters. And it just wasn't, an apron just wasn't going to work. All right, as much as I love the silence of my silicone whisks, sometimes they won't whisk things like that. And you have to get out your metal whisk. So I like the silicone ones though because they are super quiet. Okay, you want to kind of start to cream the butter, the oil and the sugar and the extract. It's not really going to change the texture very much at this point, but you're just aerating it a little bit. Then I'm going to go ahead and add in, I have 2 eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my 2 eggs. There we are, 1 egg. And 2 eggs. Mix those 2 in. And if you notice, this recipe isn't heavy on the egg. That is because eggs are super expensive right now. So I didn't want to use any more eggs than was necessary in this recipe. So 2 eggs is a plenty. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and add in the bananas. And I'm just going to go ahead and remove them from the peels. And I mean, yeah, this is kind of, most of the time we would toss these super ripe, super dark bananas like this because you go, ooh, those bananas gone bad. But actually what happens with bananas that get this ripe, the banana itself have absorbed everything that's in the peel has been absorbed back into the actual fruit. If you notice how yellow bananas, the peels are a lot thicker, and then the super ripe bananas, the peels are very thin. That's just because everything, all of the nutrients that's in the peel has been absorbed into the banana. And I have seen recipes where people use banana peels, by the way. You can Google that and check that out. But there are people who actually use banana peels in recipes. So if you're interested, you can Google that and check that out. You don't even have to waste this if you don't want to. There we are. Got the bananas in, and then just give them a light mix. Now, the reason why I did not add the bananas in the beginning and mash them like you typically do in a recipe, if you do that, the bananas have a tendency to liquefy, and they kind of just completely disappear into your mixture. And I like to see a few pieces of banana in my banana bread. I like to run into a few pieces. So, if you like the liquefied, like banana, they mash them. But I like to do them this way. Besides, a masher is another thing that has to be washed. So, right. So let's go ahead and sift in the dry ingredients. Now, here I have my whole wheat flour. Try to do this without flour going all over the kitchen. And then here I have my all-purpose flour. And I'm going to reserve a little bit of this, and I'll explain why in a minute. You actually want to reserve about 1/4 cup, and I'll explain why in a minute. And I have cinnamon, so I'm going to go ahead and add that into here. And then I have baking soda, baking powder, and salt. Now, why use baking powder and baking soda? Baking soda is what leavens your bread, and it'll give it a nice brownness. But baking powder will give you a nice tall banana bread. So you can use all baking soda. You don't have to use baking powder at all. But I just add some baking powder because it gives you a taller loaf of banana bread. Okay. Mix that in. All right. No need to go crazy with the mixing at this point. You just want to make sure you get the lumps out. Now I'm going to switch to a spatula, which I have in my hand. So mix that in. And you can already see the baking powder and the baking soda is already starting to activate. That's the baking powder, soda actually. Now, let me talk a teeny quick bit about baking powder versus baking soda. Baking soda reacts with an acid. Bananas are a little bit acidic, and brown sugar is acidic. So you put those two things together and the baking soda activates. That's why it's already looking like it wants to start to rise. Like baking powder, however, it activates with liquid and heat if you're using double acting baking powder. The double acting is the first. It reacts with liquid, and then the second of the double is heat when you put it in the oven. Now, as I say, you cannot use baking soda without using some sort of acidic ingredient. So the bananas in this case and the brown sugar is our acid. If you don't have, if you're not making banana bread, but you have I don't know, you could be making some sort of quick bread and you're using baking soda. If you don't have brown sugar, you can add some molasses. You can also add, use the brown sugar, or if you don't have brown sugar, add some molasses to some white sugar, or add some molasses to the mix, and your baking soda will activate. It won't activate if you don't add an acid to it. It'll just be there, but it'll never do anything. Okay, so let's go ahead and add in coconut. Now, this is another thing that's been bobbing around my kitchen, and I've been looking at it. And this is some coconut that I have left over from a coconut cream pie. So I'm just going to toss a little bit of flour in and just mix that in. And then add this to the mixture as well. The reason why you toss the coconut in with a little bit of flour, same thing with the walnuts, is it keeps them from sinking to the bottom of the batter. So just give them a little toss. Oh, by the way, sorry, I have black walnuts, and you can use regular walnuts. Our fire station sells nuts in the winter, and we bought some from the fire station, so that's what I'm using. And I have dark chocolate chips. I'm going to add. Toss them in a little bit of flour too, and add them right in. Okay, that's all of the little bowls. Right, so go ahead and fold this mixture together. This looks so good. Smells good too. The coconut, by the way, the coconut was toasted coconut. And you can't even tell we used whole wheat flour. In a recipe like this, you add a little extra goodness. You don't have to tell anybody. And it's there, and you know, it makes you feel even better about what you eat. By the way, you can substitute the white granulated sugar that I use for raw sugar. You just need to put it in the food processor and break it up a little bit, because the raw sugar will not dissolve quite like the granulated sugar. Okay, so we are ready to spoon this. I've got my streusel made. I've got my banana bread mix made. Now we're just ready to spoon it into our loaf tins. So here I've got some mini loaf tins, and then I have a larger loaf tin. Now the larger loaf tin is for the family, and the mini loaf tins are for friends and neighbors, because you know, nothing's like being able to share something that you made with somebody else. So I'm actually going to use a scale so I know everybody is accurate in size. Now, I have made thousands of these. No joke. I have made thousands of these banana breads. So I know each one needs to be 250 grams. So anything more than that, and then it becomes too much for these small loaf tins. Just going to go ahead and divide the mixture between my pans. It's okay. The bigger one is 650 grams. I made enough of those too. When you are baking and you're scaling ingredients, it's a good idea to have an accurate weight for each item or for each thing, because that allows you to, number one, you know everybody's the same size. And number two, you can kind of start to, you don't have wild, you know, different, one too big, one too small, that sort of thing. Okay. Now I've got a little bit of batter left that I'm actually going to divide between my little ones. Sometimes that happens. I usually just split it between my little ones. Okay, got them all filled, so we can set the scale aside and we can put the bowl aside because we're done with it. Now we just need to add the streusel to our little banana breads. So this is the optional bit. Like I say, you don't have to add streusel if you don't want to, but I will. So, and by the way, you probably won't need all of this streusel, but it freezes well. You can just put it in a Ziploc bag, put it in the freezer, and just pull it out and sprinkle it on whatever you want, whenever you want to. So just top each one with some streusel. There you are. And make sure the nuts are very visible in the top of the streusel. Like I said earlier, that way, you know, if you have guests or you're serving something to somebody, you never have to worry about, do they know nuts is in it? Because there are people who are severely allergic to nuts, and we always want to be conscious of other people's food allergies. I want to give you a quick tip about adding streusels to any batter. The best way to keep your streusel on top and it doesn't sink to the bottom is to use, add it to something that's dense like this banana bread. If you try to add it to a batter that's too liquidy, it will not hold the streusel and it'll just collapse and fall through, and then your streusel will be at the bottom and not sitting on the top. This batter, this banana bread batter, is thick enough to hold the streusel and leave it on top. You know, if you make peach cobbler and you pour the batter in, then you put the peaches on top. The peaches are heavy and they sink down to the bottom and push the batter up to the top. And that's what happens because they're heavier than the batter underneath them. So if you're putting a streusel on something, you want to make sure that the batter underneath it is not so light that the streusel will just fall straight through. So I'm ready to put these into the oven. I have my oven preheated to 345 degrees convection. Now, if you're baking these without the convection, preheat your oven to 350 or 355. The reason why I say or 355, 350 for the big one, but 355 for the small ones because they'll bake a little faster and they don't take as long. But I have my oven preheated to 345 degrees convection, and I'm going to bake the little ones for 32 minutes, and I'm going to bake the big one for 45 minutes. Now, as I say, I've baked these long enough to know the time, but always start checking them about 5 to 6 minutes before. And the best way to do it is to take a skewer and stick it on the side and go in underneath at an angle like that. If you poke it straight in the middle and they're not ready, it will make your banana bread collapse. So stick a cake tester in through the side and make sure they are done before you remove them from the oven. So these are ready to go into the oven and bake. All of the banana breads are out of the oven and oh boy, they smell so good. Especially the black walnut. It just really, oh boy, that black walnut smells so good. If you haven't baked with black walnuts, I highly suggest that you do, because the regular English walnuts that we are used to from the grocery store, they're good, but only if you toast them. The thing about black walnuts, you don't really need to toast them. They have plenty of flavor without toasting them. And by the way, the walnuts that I put in this batter were not toasted. You can toast them, but they really don't need it. They smell and taste so good regardless. So I'm going to go ahead and turn out these breads. Now I'm going to grab a platter. This actually is a platter that belonged to my grandmother Rosa. And yeah, this was her platter. It's a beautiful platter. It has some age spots, but in our house, we reserve this for special, very special meals. Sometimes I'll put bread on it. Sometimes I'll put, like a lamb roast or something on it. But it's really reserved for very special meals. When I pull this out and set it on the table, it's a special meal. But you guys are my special viewers, so I pulled out my grandmother's platter just for you guys, because you guys are special to me. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to turn these out, because that can be a little, with the streusel on it, some of it can fall off sometimes. So I just like to grab the edges and just give them a little pull out to loosen it. And then I take an empty loaf pan and then just turn it over like that. And then I can put my hand here and tip it to the side. And there we are. And no streusel falls off of your banana bread. So if you're making banana breads like that, and you have a streusel or anything, if you have a separate extra pan, that works. Oh, hang on, I forgot. Loosen the sides. That just makes sure everything tips out. Kind of like a cake. You can run a knife around the edges too. Tip it to the side. There we are. Out she comes. And then tip it over. And no streusel falls off. And they look so good. Now these are ready to wrap and share. You can also freeze them as well. It's a good make ahead. They freeze really well. You just want to make sure that they're completely cooled before you wrap them and freeze them individually. But they're also ready to share and give to neighbors and friends and family members and coworkers and anybody else that could use a loaf of banana bread. Now the big one, some streusel will fall off. That's almost unpreventable. So I'm just going to invert it like that. There we are. And not that much fall off, which is a good thing. Because the streusel is part of the goodness of the banana bread, so you don't want to lose any of it. Okay, and I'm just going to cut a couple of slices, just so you can see what it's like on the inside. And so also I can see what it's like on the inside. The funny thing about being a baker is whenever you bake something, or even when you make something, such as a cake or, anything like that, especially if it's a cake with a filling in it, you don't know what it's like on the inside until somebody cut into it. So, like if I'm doing a very large decorated cake, and I give it to somebody, I have no idea what that cake, what all those beautiful layers look like. Because I don't get to see all of that. So it's always a treat when I get to cut into something that I make, because I typically don't ever get to cut into things that I make. Like if I'm making something for somebody, you wrap it up, you give it to them, you box it up, and you don't really get to see any of the insides. So I remember I was somewhere and I was asked to cut a cake. And they were like, "Oh, Sarah, you're going to cut the cake, right?" And I'm like, "Do you know how many cakes I actually cut in a year? Maybe 2 cakes in a year. I can make oodles of cakes in a year, but I deliver them. And I don't ever get to cut them, and I don't get to see the inside. So today, I get to see the inside of this bread." Okay, I'm going to grab myself a piece. Now, this is going to sound a little funny, but in our house, banana bread is treated more like cake. You eat it. You can't eat it as breakfast. We actually don't. We treat it just like we would cake, because in a lot of ways, it is a cake. I think we like to call it banana bread because it makes us feel better about eating it in the morning, but it really is a cake. And I'm going to use a fork and a saucer because there's a lot running around in this. So, I want somewhere the streusel is. It smells good. Thank you, Jesus. That is good. Thank you, Jesus. That is delicious. I love the dark chocolate in here because it is kind of sweet. But the dark chocolate, it's just kind of, I'm sorry, I'm talking to my mouth full. The dark chocolate just kind of, it brightens the flavors. And then the black walnuts and the coconut gives the bread a lot of texture. Because banana bread can be it can have a lot of flavor, but really be 1D when you're talking about texture. So the coconut and the black walnuts really give it a nice balance of texture. The bananas give it a lot of flavor. This is so good. Daddy's going to have a great time eating this because it's everything he loves. He loves whole wheat things. He loves things with nuts. He loves things with coconut. And he does like chocolate. Although Daddy has to be in a mood to eat chocolate. But he's not a super chocolate person. But if you put it in something like this, he absolutely loves it. You know what? This would make really good muffins too. Well, we're going to have to save the banana nut muffins for next time. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy the recipe. And the next time you see a couple of overripe bananas hanging around on the shelf, now you know what to do with them. So I hope you guys enjoy the recipe. I hope you guys stay warm, stay safe, stay healthy, and the good Lord willing, I will see you guys again in another video. Take care, y'all. Bye.